Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Grow Your Occupancy podcast. I'm Julie Podowitz, CEO and founder, and today I welcome Lauren Foley to the show. Lauren Foley is an experienced enterprise sales leader specializing in healthcare technology and engagement solutions. She's passionate about leveraging technology to connect with individuals in order to improve the mental and physical well-being of people of all ages. Over the past 12 years, Lauren has had the privilege of working with many of the top enterprise health systems, providing communications and engagement IT solutions, and ultimately improving resident outcomes. She's currently the Director of Enterprise Sales for IN2L. And most recently, Lauren has walked the journey of adult daughter for her mother, Karen, who recently moved into a memory care neighborhood. So welcome, Lauren.
Thank you so much for having me.
So Lauren, you and I had an opportunity to connect earlier this year at a conference, and we got to know each other a bit. And you mentioned the journey that you took with your mom, Karen, and I thought, oh, I've got to have you on the podcast. I'd love to hear from your perspective of an adult daughter a little bit about your journey. So kind of tell us from your perspective, the good, the not so good, what worked, what didn't work. We want to pick your brain so we can improve customer experience and ultimately the sales and decision-making process.
Sure, I'm happy to share. So my mom was diagnosed officially in early 2020. But she was really hesitant to move, and we really wanted to keep her at home because she wanted to be at home. And then we had to take her driver's license away, which really caused a lot of angst with her. That was probably the hardest step, honestly, in the whole process. She was very independent. She had two homes, one on the coast and one in the city in Oregon. And so once that was taken away, she was very distraught. And so we were dealing with that piece as well as watching her decline fairly rapidly, likely due to COVID and the isolation. And, we were hesitant to be around her too much at that time. Everyone was isolating. So once we got the diagnosis through the neurologist and everything, I started getting those phone calls. I travel a lot for work where she couldn't remember how to turn off her stove, or she couldn't remember how to do certain things, or would be distraught in the middle of the night. And so I knew the best place for her, being in the industry, would be to move her into a community where she would be safe. She's still very much in denial of having Alzheimer's and vascular dementia. So that was very challenging. So it was really trying to figure out the best place for her that she would agree to in a way that wasn't so disruptive, because at the end of the day, you can't force someone to go somewhere, right? And so I started looking, and my main factors were geographical. Where she was living was really bad during traffic time. So it would be 45 minutes plus of in traffic. So having that be somewhere close-ish to myself and her sister, and as well as I wanted somewhere where she was AL initially and is actually about to move into memory care. So she just has an advanced level of care right now in assisted living, but we're getting towards the time to move to memory care. I didn't want to have to move buildings. And then she had a dog, which was also challenging, which a lot of people don't take dogs in assisted living. And so it really did start to narrow my search quite a bit. But once I got to that point, and I'm in sales, so I'm passionate about sales and how people present. And what I feel like I got more than anything was a building tour. And, my mom was she loved to travel and garden and had all these hobbies that she still was super connected with. And that just was not the questions I was getting. My mom loves to go for walks, but she's not going to ride that Peloton. That's a really neat workout room, but she's probably never going to go in there. And it's impressive to me. So I felt like my questions weren't getting answered. And I actually listened to you speak, Julie, once on follow-up. I felt like people were just following up. They weren't actually asking me anything or presenting something that is compelling. Something like, I know your mom really likes this, and I just met someone that's from there too, or that loves to garden, or whatever that might be. So that was kind of things that I saw that were really challenging for me.
How did you begin your search? Meaning, in what way did you research options?
Yeah, I really went off of geography because I wanted to be accessible to her. So I literally, got on the internet and started Googling, maps, different places, and then researching one by one. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you started on Google, and you were, the geography was really important to you. And then how did you initially reach out?
So I always just prefer to call because I'm so busy that if I give them the option to call me back, that usually they don't catch me. So I just started calling, and some of the tours were really limited at that time, which was difficult. I would get called back most of the time that I called, or someone was there to receive the call.
So you made the initial call. Sometimes someone was there to receive your call. Sometimes someone wasn't. If they weren't, you left a voicemail and someone called you back?
Yeah. Yes. They would.
Okay. So did 100% of the people you reached out to connect with you eventually?
I think there was one that I had to reach back out to, that they didn't respond to my message. Yeah. Which was surprising.
Okay. So you had conversations, and you really, you were wanting to tour, right? You're very engaged. You recognize the challenges. Of course, you worked in the business, right? So there's an advantage there, or conversely, maybe some disadvantages, but you are wanting to tour. Talk to me about the quality of discovery. I mean, you mentioned not so much, but kind of what kind of questions, or what was that whole discovery experience like, either on the phone or when you got to the community?
Yeah, I felt like there were some questions more about her level of care, but not as much about her and who she is and how she was going to be happy there, which was really my main concern. Besides Alzheimer's, my mom doesn't have a lot of comorbidities. She has high blood pressure. So physically, she's, fine for the most part, and she's only 76. So how are we going to keep her cognitively engaged, and how is she going to meet friends? She's super social. And those were the things I was concerned about. And I really felt like I got concerned about level of care, which is fine. I mean, that's definitely one piece of it. And then I felt like I got a building tour of like, isn't this neat? But why is it neat? Is that, what's important about, why did you build that room like that? Or why is that important? And why should I care about that? Another piece was, I didn't get a lot of good feedback on how I was going to stay connected with my mom. And she's to the point now that she can't dial her phone anymore. So I ended up getting her a phone with like big buttons with people's names on them that you just push, because they didn't really have a solution for that. Just keeping me connected with her is and right now is still a little bit difficult, but that was a question I asked that no one really had a good solution for.
How much discovery was done on the phone prior to you actually going to a community and touring?
Well, initially I did them by myself to kind of vet them out. And then I took my mom to a couple different places. I do think levels of care people were asking me about levels of care and a little bit about my mom. I mean, but I didn't feel like it was enough. I feel like there are ways when someone walks in that they could know her already, right? Have things that they knew to make it more compelling, because at that point, and I'd made this very clear that she was extremely resistant to moving, but yet that's really what needed to happen. But again, and I am very close to her, she is my best friend, was my best friend more when she was more cognitively here. I have 3 daughters. She's super close with them, but I couldn't physically make her move. So I was going to have to somehow start caring for her within her home when I don't live close to her, without going through legal proceedings to take over her guardianship. And so it was really important that those tours went really, really well. You know, I was on pins and needles when I took her in there the first time because I wanted her to like it so badly. And I just wish there would have been a little more connection to the things that she loves, because she doesn't care about her level of care because she doesn't think she's sick. So.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
You know, asking about level of care, you know, during discovery is asking a really challenging question. I don't even know what that means, right? So, you know, I'm stressed out. My mom's got challenges. You've seen decline, and you're familiar with the business. And I'm sure it's even overwhelming for you. You're looking for somebody to really connect with your mom. You know, Karen, a 76-year-old vibrant woman who's in denial, right? And you're being asked levels of care. To me, that's a major disconnect.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, I mean, also that, just like I mentioned, it wasn't one of my big concerns. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, how are you going to care for specific things? And so I was to love it here. I don't want, you know, and we went through challenges when she moved in, which I know everybody does, where she didn't want to be there anymore. But I do wish on the front end there would have been more discovery about who she is, what she likes to do, make sure that's trickled down to the staff when you move in, and those types of things. I mean, it's a beautiful, wonderful community, and I love the staff. I just think there's just, and being in sales, it's a little hard for me because I might be more critical of that, you know, not getting a good impression by just someone standing there waiting to hear what I think of the, you know, demo kitchen or whatever they're showing me, which again, like they're beautiful features that I would appreciate, but I'm not the one living there.
Yeah, no, you know, I don't think it's your profession. You're a daughter, right? Whose best friend is going through major life changes, you know, and you know, what you're looking for is an emotional connection, someone to just sit down, get to know her, and get to know you, of course, and then tailor the experience, meet her where she is, meet you where you are.
Exactly.
And, you know, it's so interesting to me, Lauren, because, you know, 99%, I would say everybody, I try not to do, you know, hyperbole too much, but people that join, you know, come to this business love helping older adults and their families. They're drawn to the business. It's a challenging business to work in. Sales and senior living is not for the faint of heart. I've heard more times than not, I'm not a salesperson. I don't like to do sales. I don't even want to be called a salesperson, and all of those things. And this is the most fun part, right, of the job, getting to know somebody, really learning about Karen. What does she like to do? You know, how does she like to spend her day? How does she feel about things? Yet we skip it and we go to levels of care.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Probably. And I had good experiences too. I don't want to just say, I mean, there were nice things and good outreach. You know, I run a team of salespeople. And so I have a thing with follow-up, like, send me something interesting, you know, send me a picture of someone doing something that she would like to do, or a group of people within the community. Right. But I think the most important thing that someone said to me, one of the salespeople said to me, was, we want you to be able to be the daughter again. And that totally resonated with me, because I'd been doing her finances and every single thing about taking care of her, every doctor's appointment, having 3 kids and traveling and all of that. And that really resonated with me, that I knew other people would be taking care of her when I couldn't, and keeping her safe. And so that statement right there was like, that pulled at the heartstrings for sure.
So that resonated with you. What other things resonated with you as the adult daughter? What did we do well?
Yeah, I think there were things within the building showing her things that she cared about. I loved it when we would see other residents in the hallway and actually stop and talk to them, or even other employees. Like, because sometimes, you know, you're walking by and there's not a lot of people in them because it was, you know, COVID time, and you kind of say hi. Like, I loved it when we stopped and they would introduce us to whoever it might be. It might be someone, you know, in maintenance, it might be someone from the kitchen, and introducing her. And where she is so great. Everywhere we go, everyone knows who she is. Everyone says hello to her, no matter who they are. But during tours, sometimes you kind of felt like you were invading someone else's space, versus like being a guest. And I wanted to feel like everyone in there would have wanted to stop and say hello. And because that feels more like where you want to live, right? If you see someone new and you have a guest in your home, you're like, oh my goodness, who are these people, So when that happened, I really liked it. And my mom does too. My mom has always done it. She'll stop and talk to people in restaurants she doesn't know. And, she likes to stop and talk to everybody. So I wanted that feeling, like I wanted it to feel like a home that she's going to be welcomed into.
Sure, that makes sense. I'm thinking she's probably one of the residents that they're eager for new prospective residents to meet, since she's so friendly and wants to engage and wants to talk. And what about the selection process? What were some of your deciding factors as you went through this journey?
I do think, it really narrowed down to what it felt like. Luckily, she has resources, which I know I'm really fortunate for that, for now at least. But it was about location, just the feel of the community and the people inside, and the ability to continue care. I didn't want her to have to move to another building when she was ready for memory care, which is inevitable. And we're kind of in the process of discussing that now. But that was a big piece, but it was really the feeling that I got from the people. The building happens to be a beautiful building, but there's people that say it's the care, not the chair, and things like that, which I do agree with. If the people are amazing, it makes all the difference in the world, because if it's a beautiful environment, people aren't into it, then it's just, I would have turned around and walked out.
So it sounds to me like it's really where you felt she of course would feel at home. So there's a huge emotional component. Logistically, there was a geographic component, but the main decision factor, like emotion, drove that, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It had to feel well. Also, when you're making this decision, you're just trying to eliminate any challenge, right? So you're trying to get rid of anything that's going to be a challenge in the future. Like, will I have to move her? Am I going to like the people that are caring for her? Is she going to like the people that are caring for her? And I do love the decision that I made. There's some things about it that I would, like to suggest and change, just from being in the industry. But she has never said that she has said she doesn't want to be there. She has said all those things, but she has never said she doesn't like the staff. She always says, they're so nice. They're so nice. And that's what I wanted. It's like when you have a child and you're picking out a caregiver, which I did many times, you want to know when you're not there, you're getting the best person to be with them, that you trust. And that's especially now that my mom can't really tell me everything that happens during her day. So
got to be a huge level of trust. Level of trust.
Yes.
Yeah. And how about the move-in process and that initial couple of weeks? What advice would you give based on your experience?
Yeah,
to improve that in any way.
Yeah. So what I liked about it was everyone, they already had her name on the door, which I thought was great.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And it was all clean and ready to move in. And we understood where we were supposed to go and what we were supposed to do to move all of her furniture in and all of that. And I loved that the executive director came and welcomed us. And then, different folks introducing themselves, making sure I understood who I connect with on what, because, we're transferring her medications and all of those things. She wasn't able to do any of that when we finally moved in. So I love that. We did have an onboarding call too, where they did collect some information about her and what she liked and and then what she needed help with, if it was nail care or whatever that might be. And that stuff's kind of stuck. And, I've done some talks on social isolation and loneliness. And when my mom was home, her biggest complaint was, I'm lonely and I don't have any friends, because she couldn't drive anymore. But then when she got into the community, it was, I'm lonely and I don't have any friends. So I talked to her caregiver, who was wonderful, who was my contact. I was like, can we connect her with someone that has similar interests, right? And so I don't know where that information went from all of that. She's like, well, I think I know someone that likes the beach too. And so she was doing her best, but like some of that gets lost. And that's the part that really for me was the most important part, was for her to feel at home, have friends, and do all of that and not be alone and lonely, because being around people doesn't mean you're not lonely. It just means you're not isolated, right? And so that was the challenge.
Good point.
I kind of had to speak up, and they were able to find a few people. And it's hard too, because of different levels of cognitive decline can limit friendship with certain people. And she also doesn't necessarily understand why that doesn't want to be friends with her. So I do think that's a really important piece that somehow needs to be done in the community at the very beginning. It's finding those like-minded people in all realms.
Great advice. Great advice. It sounds to me like there were efforts made, and it was just maybe connecting some of the dots.
Exactly.
And that you're right. I mean, what's more lonely than being in a group, or maybe even, walking down a real busy street in the city, or walking into a party or a gathering or a conference? You don't know anybody, and you're kind of looking around. And of course, with networking, you kind of introduce yourself, but it still feels a little, really lonely, especially. I mean, magnify that by, you don't, maybe it's just you don't feel well, or there's some cognitive challenges, and there's loss, and you're stressed. And this is a permanent. When we go to a conference, we're not moving into the conference, right? Or you go to a party, you can leave. But so it's, it's death, divorce, relocation, the most stressful events in one's life. So, so it sounds to me like Lauren, really the going back to those fundamentals, really personalizing, get to know Karen, right? And Lauren and your siblings, and what's important, and then learn about it, which they seem like they did for the move-in process, but just connect some of those dots. And it can be the simplest thing. It's not always easy, because there's so many moving pieces. We know that, but just that connection is so powerful. It's so powerful. Yeah.
It really is the people.
And
and kind of getting back to, because I was waiting for the right moment with my mom. It was like, we were kind of waiting for that tipping point, but then you're kind of also bearing the guilt that you're kind of waiting for something bad to happen. So you can push you over to the edge into that forced decision because she didn't want to go. And going back to some of the stuff you were saying about, people following up, it would have been great to hear, hey, Lauren, I was just thinking about you because we're doing, the residents are doing this right now. We have a jazz person in, and I know your mom likes jazz. And so I just thought of you. So maybe, maybe next time you could bring her in during that time, or something like that. Like that would have been, and that's a sales process thing too. Not just, hey, have you made a decision yet? And I'm like,
sure. No, that's a great example. And how easy is that then? Your mom likes jazz, you're having jazz, was thinking of you, gives purposeful follow-up, reasons to continue the conversation.
Right, exactly.
And then, which resonates with you, that, oh, wow, you remembered my mom likes jazz. Even if you couldn't bring her in, it's that idea of, I'm thinking of you. I'm getting to know your mom. I know who your mom is, not what her levels of care are.
Exactly. And why she would fit in that environment, and why she would like it, cognitively stimulated. And
I mean, anyone working in senior living, it's a whirlwind. It's a whirlwind every day. So, we know that nothing is perfect, and we're not perfect, and there's pieces that go missing sometimes, but really just get to know your residents, take time, stop selling, initially connect. And because those decisions are based on emotion, as long as the logistical things make sense, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think people that sell in, like, doing the people that were, showing us around and showing us the community, that's a really difficult job. Because I mean, there's usually some urgency and sadness and all these things that it's not selling like something that's all happy, right? but it can be.
Sure.
That's, we have to talk up the hat, but so I don't diminish how
Mm-hmm.
difficult that job is to ride that balance of knowing exactly
Mm-hmm.
what to say and when, because I mean, for me, it was very difficult. It was difficult for everyone. And then everyone has their opinion of where she should go, and you're trying to make decisions. And
Sure.
yeah, it was really.
It's an incredibly emotional time, and it takes a very high level skill set to help, a family through one person, two, three, four, the more, the greater the number of people, the more difficult the logistics, but B, the emotional complexity. And so staying strong as the advisor, right? Empathizing, connecting, but maintaining that objectivity to be able to look on the situation, because you are all in the situation.
Right.
Yeah. That's why it's a privilege to do it. It's not for the faint of heart.
No,
for sure.
Absolutely not. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot
sure.
on and manage and understand and to reach out and to not. I mean, it's probably really needs to be customized probably by family or adult child or potential resident, because there's just no good. I mean, not one person might want to get a call every day and be fine with it. And other people, I'm sure people are on edge, probably get not so nice responses sometimes if they're doing follow-up.
Sure. Well, it's about personalizing the journey, because your journey is different than my journey. And speaking of, I know we just have a couple minutes left. How are you doing now that your mom has moved into assisted living and maybe making a transition to memory care? How are you, the adult daughter, now?
I know she's getting really, really great care. And so I'm comfortable with that. I'm a little worried when she's not going to be able to talk on the phone anymore, how I'm going to stay connected with her, because I do have 3 kids and I do travel for work. I think that I need to work that out with the community sooner rather than later. But I just know that she's safe every day. And I know she's in a great place with people that care for her. And I also understand, being in the industry, the staffing struggles. So if tiny things get missed, I'm very sympathetic to that. But it was such a relief just to know that I was getting caught, that I left the oven on, or I don't remember this. And I was just, I felt like I was sitting there, like I said, waiting for something bad to happen so I could justify this move. And I'm so glad I didn't wait for that. And that's another thing that one of the women that took, that I talked to at the community, she said, don't wait, because then you're not evaluate, she's like, but it's hard to say that without sounding salesy, right? Like, don't wait, move in today,
Exactly.
But having examples of that and stories, like I loved when I met with someone who had a story, didn't have to be a story like my story, but just either a story of another resident or their own personal story with that they can share about someone that was having difficulty, or, I mean, if the community came to me and said, hey, would you want to talk to someone who's thinking about moving their mom or dad in? I would say yes. So maybe connecting me with someone that had been on that. I mean, my mom, my mom's pretty young. I don't have even any friends that have parents in senior living yet. So I felt like I was on it. That's usually what we go to, right? Just who you talk to your buddies and I hadn't been through this process since my grandmother when I was pretty young. And so I didn't know anything about the process, or I didn't have anyone to turn to. So offering something like that, I think would be really helpful.
Lauren, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your journey. And it sounds like you have more peace of mind, and knowing that your mom is, being very well loved and cared for, and you're a very caring daughter, and you're staying connected and communicating, which is so critically important. And you gave us some great advice too, because we all love what we do, and we are not perfect, but we're always striving to improve the journey, right from initial contact all the way through, our residents' life. So I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah. Well, thank you for everything you do. I know that's not an easy job, and it's definitely a purpose-driven position. So thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. Have a great day.
You too. Take care.
Bye.